What happens when too few own the wealth of nations?
This is one of the most important questions of our time. It touches on the economy, politics, society, and basic fairness. Here's what's at stake, and why the Economic Democracy Act, as proposed by the Center for Economic and Social Justice, offers a real solution.
Part 1. The economic problem.
Many people don't have enough money to buy what the economy produces. When wealth is concentrated at the top, the income from businesses and assets flows to a small group of owners. Wages can't keep up because technology keeps replacing workers and all forms of human labor. The result is a permanent gap between what gets produced and what ordinary people can afford. Governments try to fill that gap with debt and welfare spending, but that's a band-aid, not a cure. Rich people don't automatically reinvest their wealth productively. Beyond a certain point, the wealthy put their money into financial speculation, real estate, and other assets that inflate in price, not into building new businesses or creating jobs. So concentrated wealth actually undermines the economy rather than fueling it. Big money buys market dominance. Wealthy corporations use their resources to buy out or crush competitors, dominate entire industries, and shape the rules in their favor. This creates a cycle where wealth begets power, and power begets more wealth. Automation without shared ownership threatens those who don't own it. AI and robots will replace more and more human work. If ordinary people don't own any of that technology, all the gains flow to a small ownership elite while everyone else loses their livelihoods and has nothing to fall back on.
Part 2. The political and social problem.
Economic power becomes political power. When a small group controls the resources most people depend on, democracy becomes a formality. Wealthy interests shape regulations, dominate media, and fund elections. If the economic system operates increasingly from the top down, not the bottom up, the result looks like democracy but works like an oligarchy. Inequality breeds social breakdown. When people feel cut out of the system, when they have no stake in its success, they lose trust in institutions and become vulnerable to extreme political movements, both left and right. Capital concentration doesn't just create poverty, it creates the conditions for social unrest. The welfare state gets overwhelmed. As good jobs disappear, government spending on support programs rises while the tax base shrinks. The result is chronic deficits, inflation, and eventually fiscal crisis. Inherited wealth replaces earned success. When the returns from owning assets far outpace the returns from working or getting an education, family wealth becomes the main factor in life outcomes. The idea that anyone can get ahead through hard work becomes increasingly fictional.
Part 3. The global problem.
Poor countries stay poor. The standard path to development requires either foreign investors, who take the profits home, or government ownership, which creates its own problems. Neither produces broad prosperity. Without a just third option, widespread private ownership financed by future productive capacity, billions remain economically marginalized. Trade imbalances get locked in. Concentrated ownership suppresses consumer spending in wealthy countries, pushing them toward export-dependent economies that ultimately pit nations against each other in zero-sum competition.
Part 4. Would the Economic Democracy Act fix this?
Yes, more than any mainstream alternative, because it targets the root cause rather than the symptoms. Here's why other approaches fall short. Taxing and redistributing wealth doesn't change who owns the productive assets going forward. It treats the symptom, not the disease, and constantly faces political resistance. Union organizing has focused on getting workers better wages and benefits. That doesn't address the fact that automation is steadily reducing labor's role in production. You can't bargain your way out of being replaced by a machine. Government ownership just shifts the concentration of wealth and power from private hands to the state, trading one set of problems for another. Universal basic income aims to give people a floor to stand on, but doesn't make them owners. They still depend on someone else's generosity or government redistribution rather than their own stake in the economy. The EDA is different in several important ways. In one, it opens up access to capital credit to everyone. Right now, you need wealth to borrow money to buy productive assets. The EDA reforms the commercial and central banking system so that ordinary people can get capital loans backed by the future earnings of what they're buying, just like wealthy investors already do. You don't need savings to get started. The asset pays for itself over time. Number 2, the loans pay themselves off. Because the credit is tied to genuinely productive assets, the earnings from those assets repay the loan. This doesn't cause inflation the way government money printing does. 3. Every citizen becomes an owner, not a dependent. Universal capital ownership accounts give everyone a real stake in the economy. That's fundamentally different from receiving a government check. 4. It rebuilds consumer purchasing power from the ground up. As more people earn income from capital they own, mass spending power grows on a solid foundation, not consumer debt or government transfers. 5. It makes technology work for everyone. Instead of fighting automation, the EDA ensures that the profits from AI, robotics, and all forms of productive capital are broadly shared. Displacement from work becomes an opportunity for a better life rather than an economic catastrophe. The bottom line: if nothing changes, the likely endpoints are grim. Either a society where most people live on government handouts controlled by a wealthy elite, or a breakdown as the excluded majority reaches a breaking point. Neither is compatible with a free society. The EDA charts a different course. Neither capitalism that concentrates capital ownership, property rights, and power in a small percentage of individuals, nor socialism that concentrates capital ownership, property rights, and power in the state. Instead, the EDA promotes something genuinely new, a private property system where every person has equal opportunity to own a piece of the future economy, and where the financial system is designed to make that possible without requiring people to already be wealthy. The real question isn't whether broad-based ownership is a good idea. Almost everyone across the political spectrum would agree it is. The question is whether we act before the damage becomes irreversible.
This presentation has been brought to you by the Center for Economic and Social Justice.